3:57 a.m. is a weird time to find out you've apparently been evicted from a house you're currently sleeping in. It's also a weird time to learn an HOA you've never joined has voted you off your own land. But if there's one thing I can tell you now, looking back on all of it, the people who try to steal your life don't do it in daylight. They do it on paperwork in the dark while you're half awake and doubting your own reality. That night started with my phone buzzing like a trapped hornet on the nightstand. The room was pitch black, the kind of black you only get up in the Nevada mountains where there's no streetlights, no glow from neighbors, just the slow breathing of pine trees outside and the occasional creak of a house settling into the cold. My wife rolled over half asleep and mumbled something like, "Don't answer." Probably spam. I was already squinting at the screen. HOA security dispatch. I sat up so fast the sheet snapped tight like a sail. Because we don't have an HOA. We moved out here specifically to not have an HOA. That was the whole point. Cash purchase, quiet ridge, long gravel driveway, no committees, no dues, no approved paint colors. Just me, my wife, our daughter, 2 shepherd mixes, and a slice of land where nobody's supposed to tell you how tall your grass is. So I answer, and there's this woman on the line, not angry, not emotional, just clean and rehearsed, like she's reading from a script taped to the inside of her eyelids. "Mr. Albury," she says, "why are you on the property?" "Didn't you receive the eviction notice the board voted last night?" I blink into the dark, waiting for the punchline that doesn't come. "Excuse me," I say, because that's what you say when your brain is still trying to figure out whether it's dreaming or being robbed. "Timber Ridge community voted to reclaim the residence due to abandonment." She continues like she's announcing a weather report. "You are trespassing. Security is en route. You are no longer permitted to be there." Then the line goes dead. No have a good night, no callback number, nothing. Just click. My dogs. Both of them lift their heads at the foot of the bed like they felt something shift in the room. They know my moods better than I do sometimes. I can feel the hairs standing up on the back of my neck the same way they did years ago on the job when something smelled wrong before you could prove it was wrong. I'm retired now, but the old habits don't disappear. I used to work crime scenes. You learn pretty quickly that panic doesn't help, but evidence does. So I swing my legs out of bed, pull on my boots, and move through the house without turning on a single light. My wife whispers, "What is it?" And I just say, "Stay in bed. Lock the bedroom door. Don't come out unless I say." I make it to the kitchen window over the sink, and that's when my stomach drops. At the bottom of our long driveway right by the gate, there are headlights, not moving, just sitting there, twin beams cutting through the trees like they're waiting for something. I kill what little light is in the kitchen, crack the side door, and step out into air that smells like sap and cold metal. My boots crunch the gravel. The dogs slide out with me, low and quiet, tails down, shoulders tight. We walk down the drive, and there it is, a black SUV idling at the gate. Engine rumbling, dark tinted windows, and across the hood in reflective vinyl big enough to be seen from space, Timber Ridge HOA Patrol. I just stand there for a second trying to process the sheer audacity of it. Like, you can't just slap patrol on a vehicle and start doing midnight land grabs. That's not how reality works. Apparently it's how their reality works. On the hood, held down by a rock like somebody did a casual office drop-off, is a clear plastic folder. I approach slow. Dogs at heel, my hand already in my pocket around my phone. Inside the folder is a stack of papers. Official looking. Stamped. Signed. The top page says in bold, "Notice of loss of ownership rights." I flip to the next page and there's board meeting protocol with 9 signatures. A reason listed, property deemed abandoned. Return to Timber Ridge HOA administration under Emergency Transfer Act. At the bottom, like the cherry on a psychotic sundae, new owner Timber Ridge HOA. My jaw clenches so hard it hurts behind my ears. Because this house paid for in cash. Deed recorded in my name. We've been living here every day. Our daughter does homework at the kitchen table. My wife bakes bread in the mornings. I chop wood out back. The dogs track mud through the hallway like it's their job. Abandoned, my ass. I start snapping photos immediately, the SUV, the plates, the papers, everything. Then I turn and walk back up the driveway without taking my eyes off that vehicle like it's a predator that might decide to pounce. On the porch, I launch my drone. The little rotors whine to life in the freezing air and it lifts up over the pines. Camera stabilizing, giving me a clean overhead shot, the SUV, the gate, the men sitting inside like statues. 2 silhouettes glow in infrared. And in my head, that old work voice clicks on document everything before they deny it existed. Then I call the sheriff's dispatch. Try explaining calmly at 4:05 in the morning that someone claiming to be HOA security is at your gate with forged eviction papers saying your house belongs to them now. I hear the dispatcher pause, that long pause where you can tell they're deciding whether you're drunk or just insane. I'm neither. I'm furious, but I'm clear. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights flicker through the trees like a heartbeat. A county cruiser pulls in behind the black SUV and one of the HOA guys steps out like he owns the dirt under his boots. The deputy talks to him first. I walk down with my phone recording papers in my hand, dogs bristling beside me. The deputy approaches me looking uncomfortable, not hostile, just stuck. "Mr. Albury," he says, "our system shows a notice of removal was filed on this property at the recommendation of Timber Ridge HOA. Says the owner's been absent for over 30 days. I stare at him like he just told me gravity got canceled. I've been here every damn day, I say, keeping my voice steady through sheer willpower. My wife and kid are asleep inside right now. This is my home." He shifts eyes, flicking toward the SUV. He lowers his voice. "Do you have proof of occupancy?" And I almost laugh. Not because it's funny, because it's insane that I need to prove I exist in my own house like I'm a ghost contesting my own obituary. "You want proof," I say. "I've got cameras, delivery logs, receipts. I can show you bread rising in my kitchen from last night if you want. My kid's homework is literally on the table." The deputy exhales like he's already tired of the universe. Off the record, he says quietly, "I've seen something like this once before. HOA pulls paperwork, says the place is abandoned, tries to take it. It's ugly. You're going to need to move fast." He hands me the plastic folder back. "Keep this. Don't sign anything." I nod, my pulse pounding, and I look past him at those HOA guys still standing by their SUV, watching me like vultures waiting for the body to stop twitching. Eventually they drive off. No apology, no wrong address, just gone. And that's what scared me most. Because people who are mistaken usually argue. People who are running a playbook just move on to the next step. By sunrise, I haven't slept. I'm at my workbench, printing logs, exporting security footage, pulling anything with a timestamp, like my life depends on it, because in a way it does. I start with the camera over the driveway. Months of 4K footage. I clip me unloading lumber, my daughter riding her bike in circles on the gravel, my wife dragging recycling bins out on Friday mornings. I find a clip from 2 days ago of me pulling a tray of bread out of the outdoor oven, steam rolling into cold air like a little victory cloud. Then deliveries: UPS, FedEx, USPS, 41 packages in the past 30 days. Each one logged, some signed, some photographed. Me on the porch holding a box like an idiot. Bank transactions, grocery runs, hardware store purchases, a vet bill from last week when the younger dog sprained a paw chasing a squirrel into the woodpile. Every single one with a date, time, location. I'm halfway through printing when my phone buzzes. "Unknown number." I answer. Mr. Albury, says a familiar voice. Deputy Rains, the same deputy from the night before. "Listen, I just got off a call with dispatch. We've got a situation. Your property is flagged as disputed occupancy in the county system." My throat goes dry. What does that mean? It means someone filed a formal complaint through the HOA office saying the property was abandoned and that there's no legal resident present. Complaint was submitted 2 weeks ago and automatically entered because no one contested it. I feel this cold wave roll through my chest. 2 weeks ago, I say. How would I contest something I never got? There's a pause, like he doesn't want to say it out loud. "I can't see the full report unless you file a counterclaim," he says, "but I can tell you, you're not the only one this has happened to. If you want this reversed, you need to go to the county land registrar in person." So I do. I leave a note for my wife, grab my documents, and hit the road with coffee that tastes like panic. The county land registrar's office is this squat, aging building with faded signage and fluorescent lights that buzz louder than any human voice. The kind of place where time goes to die and paperwork goes to multiply. I get to the desk and explain. The clerk, a woman in her 60s who smells like stale coffee and lavender lotion, frowns and starts typing. "James Albury. Parcel ID. Yep," she says. "There's a note here. Abandoned residence. Property reclaimed under Timber Ridge HOA emergency transfer claim. Recorded change of ownership effective date 2 weeks ago." I swear I can hear my heartbeat in my ears. "That's impossible," I say. "I never left." She turns the monitor slightly like she's showing me the weather radar for a tornado. "I'm just reading what's on the screen," she says, not unkindly. "Looks like a supplemental expansion map was filed by Timber Ridge HOA the day before the reclamation claim. Your parcel is now listed within their jurisdiction." I grip the counter so hard it creaks. "This property was never part of Timber Ridge," I say. "I bought it outside their boundaries on purpose." She nods sympathetically. "You may need to speak to zoning and mapping." 10 minutes later, I'm in a cramped back office with a zoning officer who looks like he'd rather wrestle a cactus than deal with this. He taps around on his computer and says, Timber Ridge filed a jurisdictional boundary expansion, annexed 8 parcels into what they labeled a future development buffer zone. Yours was one of them. I stare at him. So they just drew a line around my house and decided they owned it. He winces. Legally, no. Procedurally, it's murky. The bigger problem is the Emergency Transfer Act. It allows temporary seizure if it's proven abandoned and if no owner responds within the notice period. I never got notice, I say. He pulls up the digital record. It was sent to this address. He turns the screen. The listed address is a P.O. box in a town I've never even heard of. Someone created a fake contact address for me. And right there in that buzzing little office with its coffee-stained carpet and dying printer, the truth hits me like a freight train. This isn't a clerical mistake. It's a system. Someone fabricated evidence of my absence, redirected official mail, redrew jurisdictional lines, and filed ownership transfer paperwork while I was living in the house with my family. On the way back to my truck, my phone buzzes with a message from a number I don't recognize. I know what they did to you. It happened to me too. Call me. That's the twist nobody tells you about with these kinds of stories. You think you're the main character, then you realize you're just the newest name on a list. That evening back home, the mountain sky is going black. First stars coming out. My wife is waiting on the porch, worry etched into her face. I hand her the printouts and flash drives like they're weapons. It's worse than we thought, I tell her. They recorded Timber Ridge as the new owner 2 weeks ago. She doesn't even speak. She just goes inside and starts packing our important documents into a metal lockbox like we're about to evacuate a hurricane. I sit at the kitchen table and call the number from that message. A man answers, older, exhausted. Name's Peter Harwood, he says. I had a cabin on the South Slope, went to the VA hospital for a stay, came back, HOA had reclaimed it. Same emergency act, same fake notice. They sold my cabin before I could fight it. His voice cracks on the last part, and that sound does something to me. It turns my anger into something colder and sharper. This isn't just paperwork, he says. It's theft. Be careful. They play dirty. I thank him, hang up, and stare at my own walls like they might not belong to me anymore. That night, I create a folder on my laptop, Timber Ridge Evidence. And then I do what I've always done when someone tries to lie with confidence. I build a case so tight it chokes them. I draft an emergency petition for an injunction. No transfer, no sale, no auction. Nothing moves until a judge looks at it. Next morning, before the coffee is even done brewing, a silver pickup rolls into my driveway. 2 men step out in navy jackets with Timber Ridge HOA compliance badges holding papers like they're delivering pizza. One of them, heavy-set guy with a clipboard, says, Mr. Albury, we're here to serve notice. You are required to vacate the premises within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in removal. I let out this short, humorless laugh that surprises even me. Get off my property, I say. He frowns like I'm the rude one. This is no longer your property. I lift my phone recording. You're trespassing. Leave now. They do that little look to each other, the one where they're deciding whether intimidation is worth the risk. Sir, we're trying to resolve this amicably. You're trying to steal my house in broad daylight, I snap. The sheriff has my complaint. The court has my petition. Every second you stand here is more evidence. That finally lands. They back off, muttering about escalating to legal, and drive away with dust curling behind their tires. I slam the door and my wife looks at me, pale but steady. What now, she asks. Now I say we go on the offensive. I call an old contact in local media, a reporter named Laura, someone who understands what paper crime looks like when it's dressed up as procedure. I send her scans of the fake notices, the expansion map, the emergency transfer claim. Within an hour, she calls back and her voice has changed, sharper, focused. It checks out, she says. Expansion map filed the day before the transfer. They're using a loophole meant for real emergencies. This stinks. Can I interview you on record? Can I? I say yes because sunlight is the only thing that makes roaches scatter. The first story drops the next morning and it hits like a rock through glass. My inbox explodes, neighbors, strangers, people from other counties. But the email that stops me cold has a subject line, we need to talk. Attached is a spreadsheet listing 6 properties flagged abandoned in the Timber Ridge area in the past year. 4 show the HOA as the new owner. 2 have already been sold to outside buyers. I call the sender a woman named Lisa Tran. Her parents lost a lakeside cottage the same way. They found out when they came for the holidays and there were new locks and strangers inside like it was always theirs. They always pick quiet people, she tells me. Part-time residents. People who keep to themselves. They think nobody will notice until it's too late. Now, I'm not just fighting for me. I'm staring at a pattern. That night, my daughter, who's terrifyingly good with a laptop, sits with me and we start digging into the files. We compare metadata from Lisa's documents and mine. Same formatting, same software, same embedded timestamps. We pull IP addresses from the electronic filings. One repeats across multiple claims. And when we trace it, it points back to a residential IP inside Timber Ridge, registered to Karen Westbrook, HOA president. The top. I just stare at the screen in silence for a full minute because it's one thing to suspect corruption, it's another thing to see its fingerprint. I hire an attorney, Leah Sorensen, the kind of woman who looks like she could argue a bear into leaving its own cave. We loop in the reporter again. We bring in a digital forensic analyst I used to know from an old case. And once we start pulling threads, the sweater comes apart fast. Cease and desist letters show up accusing me of defamation. Then Child Protective Services gets an anonymous tip about unsafe living conditions. 2 agents visit my daughter's school. My kid comes home in tears. That's when my wife stops being scared and starts being angry, the kind of quiet anger that makes a person dangerous. Luckily, I have cameras, clean records, everything. The CPS attempt collapses, but the message is clear. They're not trying to win. They're trying to crush. Leah files for a preliminary injunction and requests discovery. Laura publishes a follow-up digital fingerprints tie HOA leadership to alleged fraud scheme. Then another victim calls an elderly widow named Dolores. Her cabin was seized while she was in rehab after a fall. They said I forfeited my rights because my lawn was overgrown, she whispers. I paid my taxes. I just couldn't reach the mailbox. At this point, it's not a dispute. It's a racket. And here comes the part that still makes me laugh in that dark way. With all their professionalism, these geniuses forgot one thing. Digital trails don't lie. Our forensic guy digs into server logs that Leah subpoenas from the HOA's records archive. And there it is, Karen's account downloading and re-uploading multiple property claim PDFs, metadata doctored, timestamps intact. Then the HOA pulls its boldest move yet. I come home and there's a shiny Lexus SUV parked inside my gate and a real estate agent walking my perimeter with a clipboard. Like I'm not standing there. Like I'm furniture. I say, "Can I help you?" She smiles thinly and goes, "I'm here to assess the listing value for the HOA's new holding." I just stare at her. My home, I say slowly, is not a holding. It's where my kid sleeps. She refuses to leave. So I call the sheriff again. This time I don't just have a story, I have binders, footage, filings, IP traces, court motions, the whole ugly scrapbook. A deputy reviews it, calls his supervisor. And 20 minutes later they escort the agent off my land like she's been caught shoplifting. As the sun sets behind the pines, I stand on my porch with my dogs at my feet and I realize something. They tried to sell my house while I was still living inside it. And if I hadn't been the kind of person who documents everything, they might have succeeded. The injunction hits fast. Then the county court gets involved. Then the sheriff's department starts treating it like what it is, organized fraud. And the tipping point, the moment the whole thing flips, comes from inside their own ranks. A former board member named Julian reaches out through Leah. "I resigned 2 months ago," he says. "Karen told us she was reclaiming derelict properties, but then I saw the emails." He hands over printed messages from Karen's personal account forwarded to HOA aliases. Subject lines like, "We can get 3 more before anyone notices." Another, "Use new mailing address for Albury. I've set up the redirect. Game over." That's not a misunderstanding. That's intent. Leah amends the complaint. Mail fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. And because the HOA used interstate mail and federally regulated databases for filings, it doesn't stay local for long. A judge signs warrants. And one morning, a Thursday, I remember, because the air had that crisp bite, and the lake behind my property looked like glass, I watch from a turnout as county vehicles roll up on the Timber Ridge HOA office. Officers go in with boxes and evidence bags. A camera crew is there too because karma loves an audience. Karen comes stumbling out in slippers and a bathrobe screaming about private HOA property like she owns the concept of privacy. Nobody listens. By noon, I get a call, "Warrants active, I'll be contacted by the DA," and my favorite line, "We don't see many cases built this tight." Within 48 hours, forensics confirms what we already knew. Forged documents, fake maps, false notices, doctored metadata uploads tied to Karen's home router. Accounts get frozen. HOA transactions halted. One board member tries to flee, gets intercepted at the airport with cash and fake IDs like he's in a bargain bin crime movie. Then the audio recordings come out. By their bylaws, votes are supposed to be recorded. Some votes don't exist at all. Others, you can hear Karen pressuring people, offering bribes, talking like she's ordering takeout. "Just sign it, Doug," she says on one. "He hasn't been there in a month. He'll never know." But I did know, and now the whole world did. Karen gets arrested at 5:42 a.m. handcuffs this time. Real ones, not paper ones. The community revolts. A special meeting gets called. Over 100 homeowners show up, furious, ashamed, heartbroken. People stand up and talk about what they lost: the widow's cabin, the veteran's home, the deployed couple's house sold out from under them. A woman holds up a framed photo of her late husband and says, "He died before he could fight this. This is for him." The vote to dissolve the leadership is unanimous. And then the moment I didn't even realize I needed happens in court. Even after the fraudulent transfer is rolled back, The law requires a declaratory hearing to permanently reinstate title. So I show up with original deeds, notarized filings, everything. The judge reviews my documents for 15 minutes, stamps them with a heavy thud, and says, "This home was stolen from you under false pretenses. The court hereby restores full and exclusive title to your name. No HOA, no board, no third party may ever claim jurisdiction over your property again. This ruling is permanent." I don't realize how much I've been holding my breath until my lungs finally let go. Outside the courtroom, my wife is waiting with our daughter. My kid hands me a paper bag. Inside is a fresh loaf of sourdough she baked that morning. I laugh because of course she did. Because in our house, bread is how we remind ourselves we're still here. 2 months later, Timber Ridge HOA is basically a ghost dissolved signs torn down their website, redirected to a blank page like an abandoned mall. Karen gets convicted. The jury barely takes a breath. Between the forged signatures, the router logs, the internal emails, the witness testimony, her defense collapses like a rotten fence post. 12 years in federal prison, no parole, and restitution gets ordered for the families. Legal costs, damages, everything. Money comes from seized accounts. Property sold through shell LLCs, even some little stash she tried to hide digitally. Which, and I swear this is true, got cracked because the passphrase was based on her dog's name. If you're going to steal houses, at least don't be predictable. Me, I used part of what I got back to build a small guest house out back. Not fancy, just quiet. A place to write, to breathe, to remember that peace is something you protect, not something you assume you deserve. And here's the lesson I didn't want, but I earned the scariest kind of evil. Isn't the guy in a mask with a crowbar. It's the woman in a blazer with a stamp smiling while she ruins your life procedurally. Power doesn't always kick your door in. Sometimes it slides into your mailbox, reroutes your address, and dares you to notice in time. We put up a new gate after everything. Heavy steel, remote access, solar backup, and on it I mounted a small engraved plaque. Nothing dramatic, just a sentence that makes me grin every time I see it. Private property not subject to HOA, try me. Sometimes at dusk I sit on the porch with my wife and watch the sun roll down behind the ridge. The dogs bark at coyotes, the wind stirs the pines. And I think about that 3:57 a.m. call, that arrogant voice telling me I didn't belong in my own home. They picked the wrong man. But here's the question that still messes with me, and I want to hear what you think. If someone tries to steal your house using paperwork instead of violence, what's the right way to fight back, and where's the line between justice and revenge? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me if you think I went too far, not far enough, or if you've ever dealt with an HOA or bureaucracy that tried to ruin your life. Because I promise you, you're not the only one.